This episode is proudly sponsored by Di Roberts Flooring. They're a friendly and reliable family-run local business trading in Coventry. They supply quality carpets, laminate and LVT flooring to suit every home and every budget. Find them on Facebook and follow Di Roberts _carpets_flooring on Instagram today.
In 2018, I had probably like my first major episode.
So type 2 is what you were diagnosed with?
Yeah.
How did that feel when you got that diagnosis?
And almost wanted to help other people see that, yes, you might have a mental health condition, you might struggle with your mental health, but you can still do other things, and you can still find these tools that will help you live well with your condition.
You mentioned that you are a mom.
Yeah.
How were you when you were pregnant? Hello, Jess.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast. How are you feeling?
Yeah, good. A bit nervous, but I'm okay. Yeah.
Well, what is absolutely new for our episode is we are in a brand new studio. Yeah. So you've been sitting with me talking. This is the first time I've ever been in this studio as well. So this is your first peek at how the You Look Happier episodes will run moving forwards. What do you think of the studio?
Like I was saying a minute ago, it is very professional.
It's lovely, isn't it?
I love it.
Yeah, I really like it. Shall we?
Yeah.
So, first of all, thank you for agreeing to come onto the podcast and talk to me and share with me and the listeners about your story. I know a little bit because we've chatted before, but for those that don't know you, don't know anything about you, could you give us a bit of an insight into who you are and your story so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the main thing about my story is that I live with bipolar. I have bipolar type 2. A lot of people don't know there's multiple types of bipolar. And I was diagnosed in about 2018. So I guess I've kind of been on a little bit of a journey with that diagnosis and managing the condition. But also I am now in a place where I feel like I can start to help others that live with bipolar. So I do some work helping and supporting other people in the same position now. And I also run my own wellbeing studio, which, feels really cool.
It is cool. You should be proud of yourself, just in general.
Yeah.
So lots of things for me to touch on here.
Yeah.
Firstly, you got diagnosed in 2018.
Yeah.
Was that sort of like a life-changing moment for you? Had you tried to get diagnosed before? Like, how did it all come about?
So typically with bipolar, it comes on, depending on the type of bipolar, it comes on in either kind of like late teens or early 20s. So I was around 25, 26 when I first started to kind of experience, I guess, what felt like more obvious symptoms, I guess. Before that, now, when I sit here and reflect on it, there were absolutely other things that I now know were episodes or at least symptoms creeping in, probably from late teenage years. But yeah, so it was kind of like little bits here and there had happened. Didn't even really know what bipolar was, if I'm honest. So didn't consider it to be something that I would have. In 2018, I had probably like my first major episode. So my first episode that I identify as my first episode was a depressive episode.
Okay.
And I actually ended up in hospital. I'd taken an overdose and I was suicidal. And that, I guess, at that point, I was being treated as somebody who was depressed, not somebody that had bipolar. When you have bipolar, you often are misdiagnosed to start with because we're pretty good at going and saying, I don't feel great.
Yeah.
But you don't really go and say, I didn't feel great like last month, but oh my God, I feel great now. Like, you don't really do that. You don't go and say, do you know what? I'm having a great time. Because
wow,
why would you? You're having a good time. And for me, I have bipolar type 2, so I experience depressive episodes a lot more. And then my high episodes, if you like, are hypermanic as opposed to manic. And hypermania basically looks like you are on a mission, you are going to get loads of stuff done. You're probably, I don't know, a little bit, you take a few more risks, you spend a bit more money, you're probably a lot more sociable, you're more confident. But it's not like, you know, what we would probably see in TV shows and on films as being a manic episode, because it's not that severe to be classed as a manic episode. It's hypermanic. So you can imagine, for me, I'm just really productive. Like, I'm just getting loads of stuff done. Jobs that I've had in the past, I would imagine they probably just thought, great, she's getting loads done. You know, why would they think any different? But I think I got to a point after that depressive episode where I just started to notice this kind of like pattern of almost crashes into low mood. So I'd almost go to this high point of hypermania and then be crashing down like a few months later. When you're treated for depression, you're given antidepressants, right? Like that's the things that I guess is the go-to. When you've got bipolar, antidepressants are obviously a stimulant. So then they send you high on their own. So I was just taking an antidepressant. So I was like backwards and forwards between the two. Once you're diagnosed, they treat bipolar with antidepressants, but also with antipsychotics, with mood stabilizers. But obviously at that point I was just on an antidepressant. And when I reflect on it, I now can see that was obviously a really bad idea. But so 2018 was kind of like I almost see it as like the start of the journey to being diagnosed. And throughout that year, it was kind of different appointments. And I was quite fortunate at the time that I had private healthcare through work. I think if I didn't, I don't know how long it would have taken to be diagnosed. The average time to be diagnosed with bipolar from initial onset is 9 years. And that, like,
9 years.
If you think about it, like, that's a big part of your adult life from early 20s. You're basically missing out. They refer to it as like the lost decade because it's a long time.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, so really I actually see that point as me being in quite a fortunate position that I was able to access private healthcare, because like I say, without it, I don't know how long it would have taken. It, you know, I guess that's always a big question mark that I think, wow, how, like, would I know now? Like, I think I would, but yeah.
I think it's scary as well, but with what you've said, we go to the doctors when we're feeling sad, but we don't go to the doctors when we're feeling great, do we? So on record, not feeling great, but not taking into account the other one.
Yeah. So
I can understand why it's so commonly misdiagnosed, because it shouldn't be, and people should have more of a sort of handle. I'm talking like medical services of this, but they can only go off what they've got.
Yeah.
So, okay. So type 2 is what you were diagnosed with.
Yeah.
How did that feel when you got that diagnosis?
Honestly, it was probably the most bizarre day, because it's almost like, oh, thank God, like I know what's wrong with me almost, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't really like that phrase, because it's not necessarily wrong, but, you know, at the time it did feel a bit like, oh, you know, at least I now know, like a bit of a weight lifted. But the one thing I always say, instantly I got all of these like you know, when you're at school and people say like, oh God, that teacher's so bipolar. Like, you know,
Yeah.
minute she's in a bad mood. And I thought, oh my God, like, what are people going to think? Like, and then you go into almost, I guess, that like, do I want anybody to know that I've got bipolar? And in a way, I kind of wish that me then could see me now, because actually it's totally fine. But in that moment, it felt like a death sentence almost, you know, like, oh, well, that's it. Like, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
I don't think it helps that when you're initially diagnosed, even though, again, I was probably in a more fortunate situation with, you know, the appointment that I was able to access, but I don't think really people, the professionals, talk you through what that actually means. I think over the years I've read a lot, and I've obviously lived through it, and you learn as you go a little bit. But there are some really, you know, good resources out there, and I think you can educate yourself a little bit, but it's a kind of a shame that you have to do that.
100%.
So yeah, I think maybe if I'd had more access to information that would have kind of showed me that actually you are going to be okay, maybe I wouldn't have felt that initial panic. I don't know. I suppose it's still quite a big change in your life, and it's a label, you know, like it is that label that you. And I always have this thing, and I talk about it a lot. So I do some work for Bipolar UK now, which feels pretty insane to sit on like the other side of it. And I work with groups of people that have bipolar, and we do like a self-management session. So we talk a lot as we go through it, and I am a talker, and I do like the bits in between where we get to like have conversations, and it's not just the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
But you know, we talk a lot about how much of me is the bipolar, and how much of me is actually just my personality, and like, you know, it's a very blurred line. And I think, I say this quite a lot, I actually, like, obviously there's times where I do think, I really wish I didn't have this, and this is really tough, and I'm going through a really bad time. But I also have days where I think, is my brain just like this because I have bipolar? And then I think, well, I probably think about things differently, and I probably have, like, I don't know, more empathy than somebody that hasn't been through that, or, you know, so there's positives. Yeah. My brain also works at like 100 miles an hour. So, you know, there's all those things that in a way I think, would I be able to do all of these things that I do if my brain didn't work like that? Yeah. You know, it's quite a funny thing, isn't it, to think about it from both points of view. There's days where you're like, I wish this would just go away. And there's days where you're like, but I probably wouldn't be me without it. So yeah, it's a funny old thing to think about, really. And it is a very blurred line.
What I love is the fact that you've not only embraced it yourself, you've had to research. You shouldn't have had to, but you've researched to find out more, to learn, but you're now helping other people with it. And out of interest, when you do have those chats, like, how much of this is my bipolar? How much of this is me? What's like a common theme of the people that you're chatting with? Do they agree with what you've just said, or?
No. Well, I think some people do, yeah. And I think there is an element of, I probably wouldn't be me, you know, or the me that I know I am. But obviously some people have, I guess, going back to the different types of bipolar. So some people, different types, the most common ones, bipolar type 1, type 2, and then there's something called cyclothymia.
Oh, okay.
Which is a word that I've had to learn how to say.
Cyclothymia. Right,
I've said it in multiple ways in the past, but that is how you say it. And type 1 is categorized by really high highs. So that's like your manic episodes. Still have your low mood, but they kind of, so Bipolar UK use a mood chart, and it literally goes from 1 to 10. The average person, whatever average is, but the average person sits somewhere in the middle. They'll only ever experience from like, I don't know, like 5 to 3, sit somewhere in between.
And is that for both episodes?
Yeah, both ends of the scale.
Okay.
We all obviously have different moods, so you'll always have that. But type 1 are literally, they are both ends of that scale. Right. Type 2, we probably sit more often than not in the lower end.
Right.
And then up to kind of like your mid to top for hypomania. Cyclothymia basically means you experience some of those symptoms, but you don't quite reach like the different thresholds that they use to categorize the different types. But I think then within that, you have rapid cycling. You also have mixed episodes. So it gets really complicated. And I think some people as well, when they're rapid cycling, they're flitting from one mood to the other, whereas I definitely sit for a while in
you mentioned
one.
earlier you said months.
Yeah,
so
it can be a really long time. I more often than not, I think people think that with bipolar, you're like, oh, this morning I felt like this, and now this afternoon I feel like that. Don't get me wrong, that if you're rapid cycling or ultra rapid cycling, that can happen, but that's a different kind of symptom and experience in itself. So I think you can kind of see how all these different kind of elements of the diagnosis can make it then very different for what people experience. And, little things, well, not little things, quite big things, like having a job. Like if you're rapid cycling, that's then, I
really
wake up in the morning
and
I feel like this, but I go to bed and I feel like that. And that then can make it really hard to manage just like everyday things that a lot of us, I guess, kind of take for granted in a way. And I suppose that then is why that question can be so different for everybody. And also you've got to remember when we hold these sessions, I do like an 8-week block with the same group of people, and then 1 week they can feel one way, but by the time I speak to them next, they're in a different place. And that question, I can imagine, then probably changes, like I say, if you asked me that question, if I was feeling really low, I would probably have a very different view on it. But it just shows, doesn't it, how the illness can really change your way of thinking, your way of behaving, but also it really affects like your energy levels. So when you're low, you've got no energy, like you don't even want to have a shower, you don't want to get out of bed, lifting your head feels like hard work, like you just let me lie here.
Yeah.
When you're high, like you couldn't give me enough to do.
Person on my podcast with bipolar, and then I had another person who had a family member who suffered with bipolar. And I remember the first lady, Stacey, she said there's no textbook bipolar person. You've basically just said the same thing. And I'm really keen on breaking that stigma, because with bipolar, as you mentioned earlier, people just think, oh, 1 minute they're happy, 1 minute they're sad.
Yeah.
But it's not the case,
no.
Is it? It can, as you say, it can last for a long time. But for others, this rapid cycling that you've mentioned, I've never heard of that phrase before. And I'm so grateful that you've shared it with me, because that makes sense, doesn't it? Because then they could be in a stage where they're cycling.
Absolutely.
Question, do type 1, 2 and the
cyclothymia,
do they all rapid cycle? Is it one type that can, or?
I believe that the rapid cycling and the mixed mood can kind of feature for anybody. I think it's almost like your bonus package, for want of a better phrase. Like this is your usual symptoms, and then I suppose these things are just other parts of the diagnosis for that person. I think the mixed episodes are actually quite, and again, like talking to other people as well, they're quite scary, because I think when you're low, usually you don't have the energy, like you have those suicidal thoughts and you feel really hopeless, and like you don't really see like a way out of how you're feeling, but you don't really feel like you've got the energy to act on any of that.
Okay.
But I think what can be really scary about like a mixed episode is you've almost got like your suicidal thoughts, but then you've almost got some energy, and if I'm honest, that in 2018 when I took an overdose, I genuinely think that is what I was experiencing, because it was almost like I was really kind of manic and a bit frantic, but also suicidal, and then just really kind of like a dangerous mix of all those feelings, which when I have felt low at other times, like I say, just don't even make me get out of bed. You know, it's almost, when you look back, you think you can start to spot some of those things. And I think that is what I experienced at that time. But again, at the time, I didn't even know I had bipolar.
Wow.
Or really even what it was.
Yeah.
And like you, going back to what you said a moment ago, I think there's so much almost kind of misunderstanding, but actually it's just not really spoken about a lot, because it's quite almost like a scary word and a scary label that I guess up until kind of recently people have avoided talking about that sort of stuff. And it is good that we are starting to talk about it, because I think even had more people have spoken about bipolar when I was going through some of kind of my earlier symptoms, would I have maybe sought help sooner? Because would I have seen that in myself? But I think, you only know you, don't you? You don't really know, you don't know what to compare it to, because you've only got your brain. You can't compare it to anybody else's. You know, we're very good at saying like, oh yeah, like I'm really open about talking about mental health. But when we start talking like mental health conditions, I think there is still like a lot to be done in that space. Another kind of statistic that they use at Bipolar UK is that there are 30% more people in the UK that have bipolar than have dementia. And I think we talk about dementia obviously a lot more openly maybe.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think, you know, it's kind of irrelevant other than the fact that we don't really talk about bipolar. Like
that is interesting, isn't it?
And there's over 1 million people in the UK that have bipolar. Like that's a big number.
Why is that, Jess? Why is it that people shy away from talking about it or might feel a little bit awkward? From your experience, why do you think that is?
I just think there's just years and years of, like, you know, we're talking hundreds, tens of, you know, of years where we have just been almost taught to keep these things private. And I'm always like a big believer that if I, you know, had a broken leg or a heart condition, or I would talk about that.
And you would go to the place where you knew could help or fix it.
I think, unfortunately, the thing with a mental health condition is you can't see it. Mm-hmm. And I've had so many comments of, I was made redundant from a job, and it came up kind of like in conversation in the redundancy process that I had bipolar. And the senior manager of my department said something like, oh, I wouldn't have even known that you had bipolar. Like, you don't come across like you have it. And I've had comments like that quite a lot in the past. And I think, well, what am I meant to look like?
Yeah, what does a person with bipolar behave like?
Because actually, you probably don't see me when I'm really, really low and really depressed, because I'm in bed. Mm-hmm. You won't see me then, because I'm not functioning. And when I'm hypermanic, you probably just think that I'm like doing a great job of everything. And you probably, you know, people wouldn't necessarily jump to those conclusions, because I'm not walking around with a label on my head. And so I think it's, you know, what are you meant to look like? Mm-hmm.
Well, this, and you coming on here, the work that you're doing with Bipolar UK, that is helping. Yeah, even if it just reaches one person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm grateful to you for that. So the time in which you were really, really struggling sort of kicked everything off, 2018. Have you found yourself struggling as much as you did then since?
Probably not. Like I say, I think the thing about 2018 that was, I guess, different in when I reflect on it is it definitely felt like more than having those suicidal thoughts. It was the energy that was the almost frantic panic that was behind it.
Right.
But I think I had a lot going on at the time. I was potentially going to lose my job. I'd broken up with my partner that I'd been with for 5 or 6 years. And they always say that stress brings on your first major episode. And for me, like when I look back at it, I'm like, well, that is obviously what kicked that off. And what's quite interesting is whenever I've started a new job, I just have a bit of a wobble. And everybody always thinks as well that it's the bad stuff that triggers you. It is not always the bad stuff. It can be the good stuff too, because it's just a change, isn't it? Like anything that is a change, like a new job, having a baby, even like some people have spoken about when they get married and they're organizing like that big event. Other people I've spoken to have said that can cause an episode for them as well. So the triggers are not always the bad stuff. Mm-hmm. So for me, whenever I've started a new job, I've had a little bit of a wobble. That is, either I've managed to get under control or I've had to kind of, seek kind of like help with medication. In terms of, so like I've already said, the thing that I've struggled with the most is low mood. And actually, I'm trying to think. So end of 2024, I'd actually been really good for quite a long time. And my psychiatrist suggested that I see how my symptoms are without medication.
Okay. And this is, so just so that I'm understanding, the medication, was that the antidepressant or the antipsychotic that you were taking? Both.
So at that point, I was on an antidepressant and an antipsychotic. I was actually on 2 antidepressants and an antipsychotic.
Daily?
Daily, right. And the psychiatrist kind of said, you've been really good. I think we can maybe, because some people can manage their symptoms more naturally and, they might need to go back on medication, but there are people out there that manage their bipolar symptoms without medication. And obviously I thought, well, that's great. Like, felt like I'd kind of graduated, like this whole process. Yeah. And I thought, I've really, this is great. And you get so many like not very nice symptoms with your medication. Some of them do make you feel really tired. Some of them can just make you feel a little bit like queasy. I've had all sorts of weird and wonderful symptoms. I've been on some that have literally made me like restless legs, but like restless whole body.
Wow.
I've been on an antipsychotic that has stopped my periods. Like, there's all sorts of weird and wonderful side effects.
Which can then impact you physically.
Yeah, like there's just so many, like, so obviously at this point I'm like, brilliant. I'll be free of all these not very nice side effects. The weight gain that you get from all of these, like, the list horrendous, really. Yeah. So I tried without my medication, and I was fine. I started coming off it gradually because it was under guidance of the psychiatrist, and I gradually was coming off it and it was doing okay. And then I just got to a point, I think I was coming off the final tablet and I was not okay. Like, I was really low. And when you think, do I bear with this? Is it going to go away? Am I just going to get over it? Is it just part of the process? And that was probably about this time last year that I felt like that. So I obviously then went back to the psychiatrist, which isn't as easy as it sounds, because now I don't have private healthcare, and now I'm under NHS psychiatrist, and getting an appointment sometimes can not be as easy as you need. So I went back, but then you can't just go back on it all. You have to gradually go back on it all. So I would say that from coming off it to being back to feeling really good, it almost has taken 12 months because it just takes so long to build everything back up. And then I was so low that I was just on an antidepressant for a bit because the psychiatrist wasn't almost worried about me going high because I was just really, really low. But then I got to a point where I was on the maximum dose of antidepressant, and then I started having like tactile hallucinations where I felt like my skin, like something was crawling under my skin. Wow. So then that was like August last year.
And sorry to interrupt, but is that a common symptom with that medication? Was that sort of brand new to you?
So hallucinations are something that you can experience if you are high or low, kind of like
extreme ends of the scale.
Ends.
Okay.
So almost like you can experience psychosis if you're extremely manic or extremely suicidal. But this wasn't something that I'd experienced before. It wasn't a symptom I'd had before. So it really freaked me out.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was really quite like I say, I don't actually experience full-blown mania, but for me, it felt almost like the highest that I'd felt because it was just, my body almost wasn't my own. It was quite strange.
And how long did that last for you, feeling like that?
Probably it gradually built up. So I'd say like over a few weeks, it gradually built up, but then it just got to the point where it was really, I had a day where it was just really, really bad. So I actually went to A&E that day, which is what's recommended. But when I got to A&E, they told me that like there wasn't a psychiatrist that could see me. So I was just given some medication that would kind of like sedate me a little bit, take the edge off, until I waited for a psychiatrist appointment, which was like 3 days later.
Oh my God.
So there's so many kind of like delays. Whenever you have something like that happen, it's not like you can just go, hi, yeah, experiencing this, can you help me? You're forever waiting. There's been times in the last 12 months where I've been to A&E. I've literally gone and sat in the Caledon Centre because I'm like, I need somebody to help me. And it's really sad because you don't get that help. You know, you can literally go and sit there.
Yeah.
Help me. And I think a lot of the time, you know, one thing I would say is my family, my partner, my friends are amazing, and they will listen to me and they will help me and they will sit with me through it. They'll talk to me if I want to talk, just sit there if I don't want to talk. Mm-hmm. And I do think that because the system is just so overrun, like it's nobody's fault, it's just the system is so overrun. If you have that support at home, you're just not a priority.
Yeah. And I think that's so upsetting to hear, but I know it firsthand. You mentioned the Caledon Centre. So I never worked for the Caledon, but in my previous life, I was a drug and alcohol worker. And my role, which is crazy to say, but it was called a dual diagnosis coordinator. So I basically supported people with drug and alcohol problems alongside they would have had another diagnosis. So whilst I'm not a medical professional, I was in the Caledon Centre, I think 2 times a week. If anybody's listening, they're not from Coventry, it's a mental health hospital in Coventry. And I can absolutely agree with what you're saying here. It's not the fact that the staff don't want to help. But what I found, and I don't mind saying this, I found that the staff, they were understaffed and they didn't always have the capacity or the knowledge sometimes to help. And what I mean by this is, say I would go in, I had a couple of clients that would be in drug-induced psychosis, sometimes with schizophrenia. I remember I had one amazing client and she had bipolar disorder and she would be in and out of there. But what I used to find was the staff in there would sometimes be just staff to work on the ward.
Yeah.
And I would go in and I'd sit with them and I'd have one-to-ones, I'd do ping pong and stuff like that. but the staff didn't always, some did, and some were absolutely fantastic in there, but some of them would sit in the office. And I used to struggle with that. Now you're giving it an insight from the other side. You found yourself struggling that much where you've actually been there. Can somebody help me, please?
And I think what's really sad about it, like when I look back on like my whole experience, I suppose, with my mental health and kind of medical treatment along the way, like even as far back as 2018 when I was in hospital for a couple of days, and just even thinking back to that, I had comments from the mental health team on my discharge notes that basically said that I didn't appear depressed.
Oh, wow.
And again, what does that look like? Because I'd brush my hair, like,
no.
And I think you can literally go in there, as I've said, with almost this sign that just says, please help me. And it's almost like it's ripped up and...
We'll help you when we're ready.
Yeah.
Or we'll help you when you hit that criteria of what we think means that you need the help.
And I think what's really sad is that you can try and like manage your condition, which is very much what I try and do. I try and manage it proactively so that I don't end up at crisis point, because it's not a very nice place to be.
Yeah.
It's scary. It's really quite, unsettling, traumatic. Even when you think back on some of your thoughts, almost it's like, did I really feel like that? And I just think that unfortunately there's not the level of support there for people to help you, almost like in that moment in time when you really need it. And unfortunately, you're usually kind of worst case scenario before it's an emergency.
Yeah.
Another thing that plays into it is bipolar doesn't have, so schizophrenia has like its own medical like pathway they refer to it as. Bipolar doesn't have that, and it's almost like there's not really that kind of process maybe that they should follow. It's almost like it is just trial and error. Like,
well, it literally is. As the example that you gave in terms of you were perceived to have been doing well. You got advice to come off the medication, and that was, that was quite catastrophic for you.
I always now, when I look, I'm now, I guess, just out of the other side of that, really. Probably like we're talking since October last year. I was still really kind of wobbly. But I think when I look back on it now, I'm like, that was like the worst experiment ever. Like, why?
Absolutely.
If anybody ever suggests to me ever again to come off medication, I absolutely will not do that, because I just think for me now, and actually I'm now probably more accepting of taking my medication, weirdly, because it's almost like I now know I actually need it.
Yeah, because you've seen what happens when you
like
don't take
it's almost like, oh no, I do actually need to take this every day.
Yeah.
If I do not take this, I will not be very well. And we take medication for other things, and it shouldn't be any different. I think if we're all honest with ourselves, a lot of people that take medication for their mental health, I think we do go through this like, do I actually need this? Is it actually helping me? Would I be okay without it? We probably don't take it every now and again because we think, I'll be all right. I'm feeling really good. It's really easy to forget to take it when you're feeling good, because you're like, I'm fine. I don't need it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's an element of I'm now like, oh no, I do need that. And I'm okay with that now in a way. Yeah. Whereas before I don't think I was.
I'm pleased that you've shared that though, because there may be people listening to this, there may be, people watching this that might think, oh, right, okay, no. I maybe thought one day I might not need my medication, but what you've shared here it might just land well with some people to think, oh, right, okay. What works for one may not work always for another, but I'm glad that you've shared that story.
And I think that's the thing, like everybody's experience, as your previous guest said, like it's not a textbook thing. Our brains are very complicated, aren't they? Like, it's not a textbook thing. And that's why it is so hard to treat, I guess, mental health conditions, because really, like, do we know that much still?
And who says so?
Yeah.
I ask this all the time. Who says that that's the case?
Yeah. So I think it's always probably, it'll be a long time, I think, before we really know. There is like Cardiff Uni are like the main researchers for bipolar that work with Bipolar UK, amongst others, but they work really closely with them. And I know obviously they will continue to research, but I think there's always lots of talks around like being able to scan like your brain to diagnose people for blood tests. And I think these things are absolutely obviously talked about, but I do think we're probably still, from what's spoken about anyway through Bipolar UK, I do think it's still probably unfortunately a little way off. And it's because it's complicated. Like, it's really complicated.
It's
not everybody's brain is the same.
And it's not a one size fits all solution either. So I'm interested to know all about you and your life and how you've managed to cope with all of this. But just before we go into that, if you are in a period of feeling low, how do you get yourself out of it? Or how do you find that it just happens? Or is there anything that you can do to help yourself?
I think there's definitely things that you can do to help yourself. I think it probably depends on, I find when my medication is probably like doing its job, I will still have those wobbles, like we all do.
Yeah, you're human, yeah.
I think there's definitely things I now know I can do to help myself. I feel like talking about it is almost my main thing I do to help myself. I think what can be really difficult, though, the question I struggle with the most when I do feel low especially is, but why do you feel like that? And you're like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's not always a rhyme or reason for it. So that can still be quite hard, but talking definitely does help. But I also know that I will probably start just like making sure that I'm spending more time with people that I know will, make sure that I'm okay. And I tend to retreat back to my mum and dad's a little bit because I know that they'll just
safe space,
accept me for whatever I am at that point and just let me work through it. I think it can be really hard to make yourself do some of these things, but almost like socializing a little bit, almost like getting yourself to go out and do things to keep yourself doing, like, going and socializing. Because I think once you start going low, you can retreat a little bit, like I say. And I think you do have to kind of make yourself do some of those things that maybe you don't really want to do at that point. But socializing does help. Talking does help. Just being with other humans does help. I'm definitely not somebody that can work from home. I've tried it. It doesn't, I need that social kind of connection of just, what are you having for dinner tonight?
Oh, yeah. Or I used to ask that question every day.
What are you doing at the weekend? Like, it's just nice to have those conversations. Movement helps, which really is kind of like how I've ended up even where I am now. I actually found reformer, Pilates, when I'd had my little girl, and I think I went because I was like, I want to build my core back up, that standard thing.
Yeah.
Especially after having a C-section that you tell everybody you're going to do. I'm just not sure it's still even recovered now. But what I actually discovered was it was the only place that my brain was quiet, and my brain is never quiet. It's either anxious and overthinking or a little bit frantic and chaotic, because for anybody who does know me well, I have a different idea every 5 minutes, and that can be a great thing. But it's also quite exhausting.
Is that in all three stages? So feeling low, hypermania, middle. Is there a middle?
Yeah, there's definitely
There's two questions in one there. Sorry, but I'm just interested.
There's definitely a middle. Not everybody with bipolar does really experience a middle.
Right.
I suppose medication helps you find a middle.
Yeah.
I definitely think I do have a middle. I think for me, I probably, when I'm good, will always sit slightly like I'm on the edge. When I'm good, that is when I have lots of ideas. If you look online at other people, like as in, like not like celebrities, but like iconic kind of people that have been diagnosed with bipolar, a lot of them are creative, and you'll find a lot of kind of like actors, artists, and I think again it can be very stereotyped that you're like going to come out with this masterpiece when you're high. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm about to create a masterpiece, but I definitely have a lot more, my thoughts are a lot more creative,
like more of a spark, would you say?
Yeah. And I think you just have ideas all the time, and it's annoying when people can't keep up with your ideas when you feel like that. And I think that's another thing that people don't realize. When you're high, you don't always feel like great, because you can actually be really irritated, because I've had like 17 ideas whilst I've been talking to you in the last 5 minutes, let's say.
Yeah.
And you've told me that they're all a bad idea, that they're going to cost money, and no, I don't think you should do that.
Yeah.
And I'm there thinking, well, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, why aren't you supporting me with this?
So you can see how that's actually quite frustrating, because you're really believing that all these ideas are great.
I can actually relate to you on this one. So this client that I mentioned, she used to go into stages of what she called manic episodes, and I would get phone calls. Again, I'm her drug worker, but I would get phone calls. Ellie, I need you to write me a letter. And I'd say, why am I writing you a letter? And she'd say, because I've signed up to this dog training course and now I owe them £700 and I don't know what to. And this was like quite a common thing, to the point where I had to put my boundaries in place and said, this is what I'm supporting you with. Yeah. I can write a letter and state your diagnosis and the support that you're getting here. But there was things like that. These ideas were quite common. Yeah. And she was very aware of them. So that is a running theme, is it?
Oh,
at that stage?
Absolutely. For me,
okay.
Like I am literally having an idea like every 30 seconds. And although it kind of is quite good in a way, because you're quite productive and you're quite creative. And in that sense, I guess it can be seen as quite a positive thing, especially like in the workplace. If you're coming up with all these creative ideas, your manager's probably thinking, brilliant.
Best employee ever.
Yeah, but then you crash.
Yeah.
And also you can kind of go like a little bit too risky with some of your decision making, which is where then I think people with bipolar struggle a lot with like spending money with drugs, alcohol, because decision making goes out the window, especially the higher you kind of get. But yeah, I suppose other things that I do with regards to some of that helps me. I don't drink at all. And I never really drank a lot, because I always knew that it affected my mood, and I struggled if I had been out drinking. It would just write me off. Mentally, it would write me off. And I think I just got to a point where I was like, I am literally doing this to please other people, and it's making me feel awful. And I found that either I was using it to help ease kind of some of my symptoms, or I was doing it because I was high and it was that impulsive kind of decision making.
Question that I've got. You mentioned that you are a mom.
Yeah.
How were you when you were pregnant? How were your emotions and your moods?
I started off pretty good.
Yeah.
The more pregnant I was.
Yeah.
I think, again, I don't know medically how accurate this is, but what they basically said to me is the more pregnant I got, the more water you're kind of holding in your body. It's almost like you're diluting your medication. So
wow.
I did have a period where I felt quite low when I was pregnant, I don't think it helped that my little girl liked to throw a million curveballs whilst I was pregnant. So I did have like a little bit of a bumpy journey in that sense. But my mood definitely did dip, especially kind of towards the end. So I don't think my medication was probably doing like what it needed to at that point. So they did increase it. I think another thing that people don't realise, so when I was pregnant, I was classed as high risk just because of my bipolar. So I had like specialist like midwife appointments. Right. So all of my midwife appointments were at the hospital with a midwife that I guess was used to dealing with, you know, mental health conditions. And so she was great. Like I'd see her. And what's nice is I did see the same midwife all the time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So that was one perk.
Yeah.
And she was great. And like, what was nice is they used to really spend time talking to me if I was getting myself a bit worked up about anything. I did feel like I was really supported. What was less great is they weren't able to help me with my medication. And even though I'd got specialist midwife appointments, they'd not actually referred me to perinatal mental health. I don't know why. So I then was struggling to get my medication changed, basically, because even though I had a specialist midwife in the midwife sense, and I had a consultant in the sense that I was pregnant and high risk, they couldn't actually change my medication. So I did have like a little bit of a hard time when I was pregnant, just because, again, you want help there and then. Yeah. I'm pregnant. I feel quite low. Mm-hmm. I don't want to get any worse. And yeah, that was quite hard getting that medication change. Bizarrely, after I had my little girl, I did get referred to perinatal. And then I had the most amazing lady who used to come to my house every other week. I don't actually know what her job title was, but she just used to sit and talk to me and make me feel, she was just an angel. She just used to look after me, and just every other week she'd come round to my house, sit in my front room, mainly just stroke my dog and chat to me about how I was feeling, anything that was making me feel like quite, I think I felt quite anxious when I had my little girl. No, I did feel quite anxious when I had her. And I think like around like health anxiety is how I'd explain it. So it was kind of like another thing that kind of got layered in, if you like. But she just really used to listen to me. She used to kind of do some CBT type work with me. Like she used to literally bring me worksheets and get me to do stuff just sat on my sofa. And she was brilliant. And then I had a perinatal psychiatrist for a little while, who then was amazing at changing my medication whenever it needed to be changed and tweaking it, because obviously your hormones are all over the place. So it was really useful to have that. I was really sad when they discharged me, because then I had to go back to all my usual appointments, and then I've not seen that lady obviously ever since. And yeah, I think just having that person that came round every other week made all of the difference. But
do you know what I rate you for though? Yeah, you had this help, and yeah, you in your words are sometimes wrapped in cotton wool, but people only wrap you in cotton wool because you tell them how you're feeling, or because of who you are as a person. You're a very likable person. I know it's the first time I've met you today, but you are. People will want to help you. And yes, this lovely lady came to your home, but you must have had to say something to someone somewhere along the line of, I'm not feeling great. Even when you got your diagnosis, I'm not feeling great. That takes courage to do that. Yeah. I can't remember the last time my husband went to the doctors. I don't think he's ever been since he was about 16.
Yeah.
So, and I know it's not the same thing, but you took action. Yes, you felt yourself at a place where you needed to, but you still did it.
Yeah.
So you should be proud of yourself for that. Okay, so that's sort of your journey of how you've been dealing with it, how you got into it, what happened to you. Tell me about your life now. So I know that you've got a little girl.
Yeah.
Tell me about your life in terms of work, career, this Bipolar UK and all that kind of stuff?
So I actually worked in like a retail role for a really long time. Kind of just fell into it. You know, what life just does these things, doesn't it? When I was pregnant, I was made redundant, which everybody always says, and I'm laughing about it because honestly, every time I say it, everybody's like, "Is that even legal?"
Yeah, literally.
Apparently, it is legal, totally legal.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I was made redundant, and so I had like a bit of an extended maternity leave because it kind of started a bit early before I had her. Kind of knew at that point I wanted to do something different. Like I just, you know, when you just feel like you want to have a bit more of a purpose with what you're doing. And I don't think I really knew still at that point what I wanted to do. So I had my little girl. She's just turned 3. So now I have a 3-nager who,
wow,
she's really sassy. So
is
that's
she?
fun. But yeah, had her. And I think having a child does make you think about things a little bit differently, changes like your perspective a little bit. And you do feel a little bit like, do I just want to do this forever? Like, is there more to, you know, to life? So while I was on maternity leave with her, as I was talking to you about before we started recording, I went to a lot of like mum and baby classes, the One Fit Mama classes, and kind of like discovered how movement made me feel in a good way. And then kind of it made me feel a bit more confident, I think, to go and try some other things, and ended up when Revive opened their Reformer studio, booking onto a class because I was, you know, and just like, what is this about? I want to go and try it, and I think I'd found this like, you know, newfound confidence of I can go and try this class.
Love that, yeah.
It, you know, so I went and tried it, and like I said earlier, I can't explain how much it quietens my brain because, and anybody who does Pilates in general, but specifically Reformer, will know that you cannot think about anything else in there other than, am I breathing right? Am I going to fall off? Am I doing this right? Like, am I going to hurt myself?
Yeah.
You know, there's so many, is my core engaged? You know, there's so many different things to think about. And actually, by the time you're doing all that, you cannot be stressed. You cannot be worrying about anything because all of your brain capacity is being, you know, consumed. And that's what made me love it. Not really the movement. I know that sounds weird, but I loved that for the first time, it really just helped me totally switch off.
Be at peace,
because I cannot switch off. I can't really watch TV. I can't just sit and not do anything unless I'm really, really low. And then I can't because I'm just not interested. So I'm not very good at the not thinking part. And for the first time, I realised that I was just totally switched off, and in a good way. So yeah, I kind of carried on going to classes and ended up getting another job back in a retail environment because I needed a job, you know, because you're like, I've got a child now, we've got bills to pay, like I should probably get another one of those job things. Like, so went back to work. And I think the whole time I was there, I was like, I think I should be doing something else. This doesn't feel like it's the right fit. And then I think a few months into this job, I decided that I was going to do my Reformer qualification at Revive. So then started teaching Reformer, also then started a life coaching qualification because I was just like, at this point, I'm like, I am just done with doing this job that I don't want to do. I really want to help other people. And almost wanted to help other people see that, yes, you might have a mental health condition, you might struggle with your mental health, but you can still do other things, and you can still find these tools that will help you live well with your condition. And Reformer is a big part of that. I then went on to do my mat Pilates qualification as well, because I just continued to fall in love with it, and fell in love with the teaching side as well, because what I realized was not only could I teach reformer, but then, and I'm making these people almost fall in love with it for the reasons that I fell in love with it. But also after they've finished, you get to know these people, you start talking to them. All of a sudden, you know that like their dad's not very well, or they're having a hard time at work, or they're going on holiday. And then the next week you like check back in with them. And actually, I just love that part. And I always say to all my clients now, I love teaching you, but I really like talking to you in between. And I think it's just because it's so nice to just become such a part of like everybody's kind of day to day. And it's nice to build those relationships and almost offer that safe space for people. What I started to realize when I was teaching though was that I felt like a little bit of like I wasn't maybe your stereotypical Pilates instructor. And I mean that in the sense that a lot of us will struggle with our body image, and we'll feel like we don't fit in with how a Pilates teacher should look, or how somebody should look in a class. And again, like I'm really focused on the almost mental health benefit of it. And I suppose the more I taught, the more I became almost even more passionate that it could be for everybody, and not just everybody, but also we all think very differently. Somebody might be using this as an outlet for their mental health. Yeah. And yeah, I just became really passionate about it being a really inclusive space. And then the opportunity kind of came up. I wasn't really looking for it, but you know how life just has its way of doing these things. I was offered to rent a studio in a squash club in Nuneaton. I didn't have sole use of the space, so it wasn't like it was mine all the time. It was used for other things in between. But I used all of my savings to buy reformers that I could fold away. And I, set up my own studio, which again, you know, sometimes you're like, is this kind of the impulsivity in me? But actually it's worked out all right so far. So we're going with it. And from there, it's just grown really. So I was at the squash club for about 6 months, didn't have sole use of the space. Again, was driving down Weddington Road in November and saw a to let sign literally on the same road, but just a bit further along. And you know, when you're like, what is that room that's up there? Because I don't even know what's in that building. I don't know what's up there. And cut a long story short, I ended up moving the studio to a space that is now totally mine.
I saw one of your videos the other day. I think it was I don't think it was a day in the life, but it was like, get the studio ready with me. And I saw you'd like sped yourself up doing it all. I love watching videos like that. That space is that the space you're talking about still? That's beautiful.
Yeah, that is now, and I always refer to it as like, I don't know who we all are.
I do it with the podcast. Don't worry, Jess. I do it with this as well.
I do have instructors now that work with me, which based on like what I've said already, you'll know that I love, because I've got friends now. Yeah. You know, I can talk to people about work and they know what I'm talking about. And it's nice to have that kind of team that is growing quite quickly. But so that's really lovely. So we started off at the squash club doing Pilates. We did reformer and mat Pilates. I taught every single Pilates class because it was just me. So I was like, well, I kind of just got to do this and fit the timetable in to suit me for now. Yeah, of course. And then I had Donna, who taught yoga classes for me. And that's how we started at the squash club. We now have, there's 7 instructors and me. And we teach reformer, we teach mat, we teach yoga. We've got an unwind session, which is just the ultimate kind of stress relief. Basically just lie down in a dark room, close your eyes. If you've got a child, you'll appreciate that.
Nice.
And then I think now we're starting to, we've also got bar as well. So we're adding lots of like different layers in. And we also are now doing lots of events. So we've done like sound bath events.
Me and my friends want one of those.
Where you have to come along.
I'll speak to you after.
And then we're starting to do kind of like fun evenings that are a bit more themed. So we've got like a Taylor Swift class that's going to have like themed playlist.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're just trying to like make it quite fun so that we build a little bit of a community as well as like coming to the class. And I think the events allow you to do that. We do like mini retreats with the sound bath, and we'll do like journaling sessions, and I ask them questions and get them to think about things, either privately or some people like to share, and that's really nice as well because it gets people talking. But I think the thing that I'm most proud of is everybody that comes to the studio, I think pretty much knows that I have bipolar. And I've had weeks where I've had to take a week off and I've had to have my classes covered. And the support that I get at that point is insane, because people that don't even work for my studio will come and cover my classes. And I don't think people realize how much that means to me when I can have the time that I need to reset myself for again, want of a better word, and know that financially I'm not worrying about it, because and I do have this thing where I don't want to cancel the classes because then I don't want people to miss out on their class. I'm trying to run a business, so you don't, from that point of view, you don't want to cancel. And it just means that it gives me that time to do what I need to do. And then I just go back and everybody's like, oh my God, I've been worrying about you. Are you okay? And the fact that people are even worrying about me is nice in itself. But I think, yeah, I've basically managed to build something that allows me to have what I need, but also I run my own business. And
you should be really proud of yourself. Like, in the aspect of recognizing, oh, hang on a minute, I might go and try this. Even putting yourself in that mum and baby class. I was saying to you, I did my first one ever last Friday, actually here with one of our previous guests, Annie, and I was anxious to go into it, but I loved it. And you did that. You then thought, oh, hang on a minute. Oh, okay, yeah, maybe I'll go and do this. Oh, and life does have a funny way of showing you things. So then you found, oh, they're actually putting on training sessions. I'm going to put myself forward to do that. You've then become qualified. You've then found a studio. You've then found a better studio or more suited for yourself. You're doing a life coaching qualification. You've now got staff. These are all like, if people are listening to this, they wouldn't have seen the smile on my face. But if you watch it, you will have. Like, I'm just really, proud's the wrong word. I'm just really pleased for you, because despite the maybe daily or ongoing struggles that you do have, it must make it that little bit harder for you, Jess.
It absolutely does. And I think, like I say, my medication makes me really tired. My medication does lovely things like slow your metabolism down. So naturally, like, my energy levels are really affected, probably is, the overriding theme. My partner is great at allowing me to kind of have the sleep that I need. And he's really good at picking up kind of extra bits, just around the house that sometimes I literally just can't face doing because I just don't feel good or I'm really tired. Obviously we have a 3-year-old, so she's also probably part of the reason why I'm tired. But yeah, so I think it is a constant. I'm going to get up and go and do this today. And there's days where I think, oh my God, I really can't do this today. But I think, like I say, I've managed to find a team that are so supportive, and I am really grateful every single day that I get to work with them all. But also, I think what people don't maybe realise is I literally have every notification come up on my phone every time somebody books a class, and I can't bring myself to turn it off, even though sometimes I look at my phone and I'm like, what the hell has gone on? But I just get I genuinely care about every single person that books onto a class, because it's been really hard work, and to get to this point, it's been really hard work, and it is hard work to get up and do it every day, but it is so rewarding. And I think when you love what you're doing, you kind of just keep going because you love it. And I meet so many different people, and I've met some of my closest friends from teaching, which is crazy because I wouldn't have thought that when I started. But you just realize that you're really making you're creating that safe space, and that's all I ever want it to be. Like I always say to everybody, come and move, come and enjoy it. But I actually don't care, like, whether you come in your pajamas or if you come and cry, or if you laugh the whole way through the class and you don't really do any of the stuff I asked you to do, but just come and just be part of it.
But you've built that community. So you just being you, and things like being excited when someone books on a class, not caring what kind of, person or what kind of mindset that person is in. If they're struggling, still come. That builds a community, because your people are your business and you are your business. So if people trust you because you are authentically you and you're caring, that would make somebody want to come to a class.
Yeah.
On the topic of you and your work and everything like that, for the latest season of the podcast, we go out to our listeners and we say, has anybody got any questions? And our listeners, I cannot believe it, 3 episodes in a row, our listeners have actually asked questions. Okay, so the first question that we have, what is one part of running a business that actually helps your bipolar rather than challenges it?
I think having an outlet for all of my ideas is a really positive thing. I also always say, like, people like my mum and people that are really close to me are always worrying that, like, are you going to have some time off? Like, are you going to take a day off? Or are you going to just like chill out, not do anything? But I don't think that they realize how much it helps me. So the fact that I love doing it so much that I don't want to stop is because I can't just sit and watch TV and switch off. Mm-hmm. I can't just sit and chill. I don't know that I know how to. So for me, just having something that keeps me occupied and allows me to have that kind of outlet, that in itself helps, because I've got that place to put all of these ideas. And I've recently started working with a girl called Hannah who's helping me. I think she's trying to organise me a little bit, but she helps me a lot with kind of social media and with recording content. And I'm sure she thinks most days, oh my God, she's given me about like 10 ideas and I've only been talking to her for 10 minutes. But I think that's all part of it for me. Like, it's just an outlet in itself. And yeah, keeps me ticking over.
Thank you. Okay. And then another one was, do you tell clients or customers about your bipolar, and how do you decide what to share and what to keep private? So you've already answered the start of it, because you said most people that come understand that you do have bipolar. How do you decide what to share and what to keep private? Or are you just an open book?
I think I'm pretty much an open book. And purely because I like to try and actually almost show the reality of having a mental health condition. It's not just actually treating the mental health condition. It's the side effects that come with the medication. It's being really tired. It's, you know, it's all of those things, the stuff that people don't necessarily realize are part of it. Like, it almost takes over everything in a way. You know, I have to go and have blood tests to check that, like, my liver and my kidneys are functioning as they should be. I have to, you know, have all of these check-ins all of the time that I think people don't maybe realize that you need to have. But yeah, everything is just constant. Like, everything is constantly about staying well, in one way or another. So I think I am just pretty open about it, because I'm actually at a point where I just think, what part of it would I not share now? Because I'm not ashamed of any of it.
And please don't
ever think that anybody needs to be. And don't get me wrong, as I shared earlier, I definitely, on that point of you have this, went through that, oh my God, I never want to tell anybody that I've got this, because they'll think X, Y, and Z about me, and they'll jump to these conclusions. But actually, it's quite a nice thing to be able to just say, oh yeah, I just went for this appointment and we talked about this, and, you know, and I just quite like that I can do that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart. But in terms of everything that you've shared today, I'm so grateful that you've been so honest, because you've proven that, okay, yeah, I've got this, I've lived with this, but that doesn't define who I am. It doesn't stop me from achieving my goals. If anything, it's really spurred you on, as you say, to be able to develop this lifestyle for yourself that works.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're helping other people while doing it.
Yeah.
It's a perfect cocktail.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I am really grateful to you, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you.
As I say, I'll put the links in and everything like that. And hopefully, maybe see you on a sound bath class.
Love that.
Fabulous.
Thank you so much.